Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Cristina Yiguren, and I'm the coordinator of International Graduate Services and Support Center. The center is dedicated to assisting you, our international graduates, as you seek employment and settle into Canadian life following graduation. International graduates from Mississauga, Toronto, Sarnia, and Ottawa have access to immigration guidance and services, career advice services, and networking events. There are so many reasons why you can take pride of being a Lambton graduate, as I'm proud of working here. First of all, for the quality of our education. We've been ranked as one of Canada's top research colleges. Last week, in convocation, I was pleased to participate in such a diverse and inclusive environment. It was amazing to see people from all over the world. Also, we are here to support you all the way. Even before our students arrive in Canada, we have 70% of the study permits rate approved rate, which is the highest of Ontario. And after you graduate with the services I just explained it to you. So I really recommend you to take advantage of these services. The International Graduate Support Center is your companion through the exciting stages after graduation. You are the reason for this center. We are here to support you. Today's event is hosted by the Center in collaboration with Wayble, the leading international student success platform. In today's session, you will have the opportunity to get insider tips on how to network as an international graduate, assess the networking landscape, identify different networking channels, expert advice on how to engage and reach hiring managers and recruiters, strategies on crafting your elevator pitch. And we will also have a session where Wayble will explain us about their job search tools. And during the presentation, you can deliver your questions. You can use the Q&A, and our guests will be happy to assist you with that. At the very end, once we finish and we all disconnected, you will be asked to just reply a short survey. It will take you just a couple of minutes, but it will help us a lot to keep improving for you. For today's session, I would like to begin with a short story. I don't know whether you are familiar with the UFC. Yes, the Ultimate Fighting Championship. Well, Dana White, who is the president, had reconnected with the Fertitta brothers at a mutual friend's wedding. They had not spoken to each other for like 10 years or even more. So what happens? Usually when we meet someone we know, or we just met someone and we say, yeah, let's have a coffee and let's chat any days. But does it really happen? I'm not sure. Like in my case, I believe that it's really, like it has not happened as freaking out I would like. But the thing is that they actually did it. They hang out and they went for that coffee. And probably you know the rest of the story. They created a quite big empire. So in this point, I want to emphasize the power of networking, connections, and coffee chats. So why am I telling you this story? Well, our speaker started Wayble in a coffee chat meeting group, like Dana White did. So that's pretty impressive. It's a pleasure for me to introduce our speaker. Today, we have with us Ramnath Brar, co-founder and COO at Wayble. She moved from India to Canada in 2015 to pursue a business accounting program at George Brown College, Toronto. She is the winner of the Applied Board International Alumni Impact Award and Top 10 Indian Women Leaders in Canada 2021, which that is honestly pretty impressive. And we are very happy to have you, Ramnath, here with us today. So let's welcome our guest. And I will just stop sharing my screen and the floor is all yours. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Christina, for that amazing introduction. And thank you, everyone, for joining in today, and Jesus for making me a part of the International Student Graduate Initiatives. I see that we have about 53 of you in here currently. So I'm very excited to be sharing with you everything about networking. As Christina said, we started Wayble as a networking initiative. I met my co-founder, who's my business partner now, through a coffee chat on LinkedIn. And at that point, I didn't know what was in store for us and what we were really here to do together. But the idea really was just to build better support system for international students and see what we can do to help other students, because I came to Canada as an international student myself, and while going through my own journey of trying to find a co-op, and then from there ultimately to landing a full-time job, my journey was extremely difficult, and it took me a long time to be able to land a job that I really wanted to do. And I had a lot of mentors and guidance along the way that helped me get to the right path. And ultimately, I ended up working with KPMG, which is one of the top four accounting firms in Canada, as a tax consultant for about 5 years before I started Wayble. So all of that happened because I took some initiatives to reach out to people, connect with them, and seek their guidance. And that's why I am such a big advocate of why networking is so important. But I also know that even though we hear a lot about networking, it's not something that we're always taught, and it's not something that just comes naturally to us. So today, what I really want to do is kind of debunk all of that for you. Um, and hopefully by the end of this session, you walk away feeling a bit more comfortable with what networking is, what are some of the tools that you can use, as well as some best practices. And I'll give you some of the tricks that I've used personally. So without any further ado, let's get into the session. Today's session will be called Networking Strategy for International Students and Graduates. So everything I would talk about, I will really keep that international student experience in the center of it, because I know you all might be able to relate to that quite a bit. So what I kind of told you about in terms of us, like what Wayble is, we are a international student success platform, and our idea is to make an ecosystem where we can gather around all the resources, which includes job postings from our partner employers, as well as career events and career readiness resources like this webinar, and helping international students just gain better skill set, be more confident, and ultimately land a good job and success in Canada. What you will learn today in this session, going by topic, we'll first kind of cover up what does networking as an international student and graduate look like? What are the different levels of networking and the sources from where you can tap into this network? Then we move on to talking about how you can reach out to recruiters and hiring managers to network and connect. And ultimately, how do you conduct those networking calls? And create that elevator pitch for yourself. So before I kind of get into the topic, would actually love to learn, do a bit of a quick exercise. What is that first word that comes to your mind when I say networking? Feel free to type that into the chat below. And just the first word that comes to your mind when someone says networking. What is that word? Is it a feeling? Is it something that you associate with? I really want to make sure that we have an interactive session. And since I can see a lot of you on video, let's make sure we do that through our chat. So yeah, please feel free to type that in the chat. What is that word that's coming to your mind when I say networking? Coffee chats, feeling anxious, connecting, job market. Is there any words that come to your mind? I'm not sure if I can see everyone's messages, or are there any messages coming?
Probably we can go right now and type it in the Q&A section.
Oh, I'm not sure if they can type in the chat.
We've got one already.
Okay, chat is disabled. Fair enough. Sorry, everyone.
Yeah.
I know that, so you can only put it in the uh chat. But yeah, I guess we can add that as Q&A, job market, connecting with new people. That's right. Learn from others' experience. I think these three kind of sum it up pretty much quite well, that we're trying to connect with new people, trying to understand the job market and get a bit of assistance in there, and then ultimately learn from other people's experiences. So I think you guys are kind of on the right tangent of what that should look like. And Akash says ghosting. and creating trusted connections. Akash, I do empathize with you. I think ghosting is one of the things that will always happen in networking, job search, or I think in life in general. Like everyone seems to get ghosted these days. So it is a part of the nature, but I will give you some of the tools and tricks you can use to make sure you don't get ghosted, and how you can continue to do an engaging conversation with everyone. All right. Thanks everyone for chipping in. So we will move forward. So networking, I think is a foreign concept for a lot of international students like us. For me personally, I'm from India, and the other ones who are from India can relate. For us, like when you ask someone out for coffee, that's asking someone out on a date. I haven't never heard about asking someone out on a coffee professionally. So in the beginning, when I would get these requests, like I was so confused. Like, is it like, am I just supposed to ask people out for coffee randomly? And does that even like, mean anything? And would they even be open for it? So it was really a foreign concept to me. And slowly I understood the importance of it and how we can use coffee chats to further our careers in Canada. So what do networking for international students and graduates should look like? I think, as we guys mentioned in the chat, it is really about building a long-term relationship and learning about the company and the role, and a career in general about before submitting an application. And it shouldn't be something you do when you require just a referral. I really tend to come across, when someone asks me how to, like, I can simply define networking. And for me, how I see it as it's like building a friendship, but in a professional setting. So when you build a friendship, you're interested to learn a bit about your friend, you're interested to tell them a little bit about you, and then you want to continue a long-lasting relationship where there's a barter. So you do a little bit something for them, they do a little bit something for you, you do some things together. Friendships are not one-sided where you can just go to a friend and be like, oh, we just became friends yesterday and today can you give me $1,000? You're asking someone for a favor and you haven't sort of built that trust or that rapport for that person. So for them to be able to do that favor for you would take a lot more versus if you are in need and you go to someone you have known for a year or someone you have been meeting every day in your school, someone who has built that trust with you. The ability for you to ask a favor to them would look completely different. And networking is just that. It's just a means to build a relationship. I don't think networking in itself is something that drives out any results, but it is a process that helps you build those long lasting, trusted relationships within a professional setting that can ultimately then become that broader friendship that you have, where you give in a little, which is teach them about your experiences, what you have learned, what you're experiencing, and then learn a bit from them in terms of their job, in terms of like what they have been doing, and ultimately how can they support you in your job search and vice versa. So where I think a lot of students belong is that connection side, whereas you send in a LinkedIn request to someone, or you meet someone in a networking event on campus, you take their contact information, you send them that first message that is basically everything that's to know about you and is like, if there's any job that you can help me with, please let me know. But that's essentially where a lot of students kind of fall short, is that we are just focused on connecting versus what networking really is. It's a three part process, which is first you build a network, which is what you're doing, going out to networking events, connecting with people on LinkedIn, connecting with your colleagues, your students, your professors. You're building that network by just connecting and introducing yourself to others. But what is the next step of that? I think the next step of that is engaging in that network, is kind of keeping in touch with them, having a conversation with them, continuing to do that barter with them, and ultimately not just engaging, but being able to retain and grow that network over time. So networking isn't something that you do for a week or you do for a month. It is something you keep on going throughout your career as you grow. The intensity at which you do networking, which means how many hours in a day or in a week or in a month you dedicate to networking, that is something you can decide based on what your current objective is. If you're someone who's actively job searching, then you would want to invest more time into networking, versus if you're not actively job searching, then you should still continue to invest your time, but you wouldn't have that big of an urgency. And at that point, it becomes something that you do just as another workshop or another training for your job, and it's something you do to make that have that long-term impact on your career. So it's not something you need to put in a lot of time. So it will really depend on where you are, but networking starts from the day you are in Canada, and it will continue to go until you are working here, because that's how opportunities come to you. As I mentioned in the beginning, I got the opportunity to build this business with my business partner because I was networking with her. I wasn't really seeking out a job. I was actively working at KPMG. I was pretty happy with my job. This was something I was just passionate about and just wanted to learn more and connect. And that idea just didn't happen within a month. It was over a span of a year and a half over which it happened. And we continue to connect, continue to find ways to work together, and ultimately build it into something bigger. So I don't want to demotivate you by saying, you need years to give someone before you actually see an opportunity. But what I meant to kind of showcase you is that it goes longer, and it's something you need to continue to do. So who are you networking with, right? Like we keep saying you should network with people, network with companies, but who really are these people that you should be networking with? And I would like to divide that between three tiers. I think depending on the tier, you would kind of again put in a lot more or a lot less time, depending on if you're actively job searching or not. If you're actively job searching, which means you're looking for a job, you would be doing that in the first tier, which is the recruiters and the hiring managers, right? These are the people who are the decision makers who can help you land that job. So these would be the ideal people to reach out to. But also to remember that similarly, like you, there are tons of other people who are interested to reach out, and the frequency at which the recruiters and the hiring managers receive a networking request is quite high, as similarly to you kind of reaching out to them. So the likelihood of them getting back to you is much less as compared to the other tiers, but the return on investment or the value they can put in your job search is immensely as high too. So it is something you would need to put in a lot of effort in, but can be very fruitful depending on who you are able to connect with. So recruiters, hiring managers, these are people who work for companies, are looking to hire for people. Usually, they make a post on LinkedIn saying, hey, I'm hiring for this role, or do you know someone? Please let me know. So usually you will find those postings, people who do the job posting themselves. So those would be the people you want to reach out to. But kind of keeping in mind that before you reach out to them, especially if you're doing on LinkedIn, you have done two things. First, you have made sure your LinkedIn profile is as updated as possible. And second is that you are aware of the jobs they are hiring for. Nothing will kill your application more than you reaching out to a hiring manager and them saying yes to talk to you. And then you go to them and being like, what are the jobs you're hiring for? That is something you should use Google for, use LinkedIn, and come prepared with. Because if you cannot take out the time to learn the jobs they're hiring for, you're not going to be able to use those 30 minutes with them to actually tell them about why you fit in that role and actually add something to their portfolio, because they are actively hiring for 60 to 70 roles sometimes at a time. So they are not interested to just connect with someone and being like, oh, we'll learn more about you, and if I find a job for you, I will send that to you. just by the volume, they don't have time for that. They're seeing hundreds and hundreds of resume every day. So your job when you connect for that call with them is to make sure you know which job posting you're interested in. Is this person hiring for that role? And that networking call is then more about you learning more about that role, about the company, and also kind of figuring out how you are a good fit for it, and kind of doing a bit of an elevator pitch with your recruiter to showcase why you have that skill set and why you are so interested in that role. The second tier of networking is something that is very important to do and something that you're more likely to get a response of. This is the connection with your senior management and mentors. This is not someone who's hiring currently. This is really not someone who would be the hiring manager, but this is someone who can teach you what to do to get into that role. Someone who's a senior, someone who's been in a senior management position, someone who is a few position ahead of you for the position that you're trying to go for. These people become your mentors. When you reach out to them, the simple purpose of that call is to learn more about what does it take to succeed in that industry, what is the typical roles and duties that they do, so are you interested in moving up the ladder within this industry, or is it going to be a deadbeat industry where you just to that position and you're good to go, you don't want to get more into it? And these would be the people who will share more insight as to what does it take to get hired in that role, because they've been through that role themselves. So these are your teachers. These are people who will guide you, and these are not the people who would give you the job, but actually help you land that job. And then the third tier, which I often think a lot of students miss, is connecting with your peers. Connect with people on the same level as you. Connect with people who are maybe also actively job searching just like you. What these people can do is also become an additional teacher and also a connector. Someone who is actively job searching currently just with you, look at all the 57 people in this room today. For those 57 people, you will find someone who is looking for the role in the same industry as you. You can see that person as a competition, or you can see that person as a buddy and support each other and learn from each other and back off from each other's research. They can help you learn what have they done so far, what worked for them, what didn't, and you can do the same. Share with them what has worked for you, what hasn't. Use each other to review each other's resume. These are the people who would become that connection for you of future, because they will be landing jobs in different companies. So whenever you want to find a job in that company, this peer of yours is most likely to refer you as compared to a recruiter or a hiring manager. So if you just focus all your energy in trying to connect to recruiters and hiring managers, you really miss out on connecting with other people who end up becoming that medium for you to land the role. So really kind of seep in terms of these are different tiers in which you can connect and different levels in which you are networking. But there are also a lot of uncommon places in which people don't network. And I just want to give you a bit of personal hacks and these some unconventional places in which I have and people I know have found immense value. So I will let you go through this list quickly while I take a sip, and then I will go through it in detail. All right. So in terms of the uncommon sources of networking, the first definitely has to be your alumni circle. What that I mean by that is, of course, as I mentioned, the 57 people in this room, people who have graduated from Lambton. This is really a network in which you can connect to people. So whenever you would be looking for people you want to connect with, I would always prioritize the people who either are a Lambton graduate or associated with Lambton in any way. Why that is important is because it gives that person a motive to help you, because you have the common ground of being a Lambton alumni. And also, when you connect with them, you would have something to talk about because you both have been through the same institution. You both have probably gone through the same instructors. So you would have that common ground on which you can connect with someone. So always look into your alumni circles. They're the most eager to connect, and those would be the people who would understand you more. The second is your professors. I mean, a lot of you have graduated already. So when you look back, think of your professors and try to reach out to them and see if they're willing to connect. Why I say that is all these professors have been in Canada for a long time. They have worked in different industries. They're connected with different people too. And who better to support you than someone who has taught you? So, all throughout your time, please make sure you are connecting and keeping in contact with your professors. There are so many opportunities that I continue to get because some of my professors remember me. I've connected with them on LinkedIn. I keep sending them updates of how I'm doing, what I'm doing. So I'm always up in their mind. So whenever they have an opportunity to be a guest lecturer, or they have an opportunity for a job, or that someone is looking for someone to connect with, they always pass that through me because I am in constant contact with them. So don't discontinue your relationship with your professors. And if you never made one, you already have their email, reach out to them, see if they're willing to just grab a quick coffee with you and continue to foster that relationship because that is really, really important for you to do so. The third one, which is again very uncommon, is your past interviewers. A lot of you think just because you didn't land that job, that connection with that person is not worth it anymore. But that couldn't be far from truth because sometimes you can't land a job because they might have found a better candidate, something worked for that person. But still, if they looked at your resume, if they asked you to come to an interview, that means they're interested in you and that means that they think you're worthy. So just because you couldn't be the best fit for the role doesn't mean they don't think you are a good person. So every time you do an interview with someone, doesn't matter if it's a positive outcome or a negative outcome, always ask for their email, always send them a thank you note, and always keep them in your network. Kind of after the results of the interview are out, even if it's a negative response, you got rejected, see if they're willing to continue to be in your circle and then continue to kind of keep them engaged over a period of time. I'll tell you, I had one of my friends who continued to do this and was asked the interviewer for some feedback of like, hey, I didn't land this role, would you be interested to sit down and just give me a quick feedback? They did that, and he continued to connect with them and ended up actually landing a role with the same company without even applying because that interviewer remembered them and was like, oh, I have another role that I think could fit for you. Do you want to come and interview? So don't discount people who just because they rejected you, they're still interested in you. So make sure you continue to network with these people and kind of take that relationship a step beyond just the job interview. And then the fourth one is community Slack groups. There are a lot of community groups like Wayble. I know there is like Immigrant Network. If you go on LinkedIn, now you can search a lot of community groups. These could be something that is related to your profession. So you will find groups like, Women in Tech, Computer Science Society, STEM Society, Business Society, things like that. Or you could find something within your own ethnicity if you're an Indian, South Asian, um, you know, Latin American, whatever that looks like, there would be a lot of cultural groups as well. So look for that community of yours and see if you can find a way to connect with people through that. Again, similar to your alumni, these people would have more eagerness to help you because they have that common ground with you and they know they would want to help you because of that similarity that you all share. So always don't discount those groups, and they are also a great way for you to have sort of a bigger outreach at the same time because when you are a part of that group, depending on how many members they have, 100, 200, 5,000, you would be able to have that bigger pool rather than going one-on-one on LinkedIn and trying to find those people on who you should connect with. And then the last, which I already shared with you, are your peers. Talk to your classmates, talk to your ex-batchmates. Make sure you keep in connection with them, keep updated as to what they're doing. Of course, you can't keep doing that on an everyday basis, or even on a monthly basis for that matter. But make sure you're connected with them on LinkedIn. Every time they're sharing something, support that friend of yours. And every once in 3 4 months or 6 months, make sure you kind of keep refreshing that conversation with them. It doesn't have to be a coffee chat. We can also just continue to text each other on LinkedIn, but make sure you keep that conversation going, because these are the people who would become that bridge to connect to others. They can be someone who can share jobs or strategy with you, and also someone who can help you get an introduction to their managers, and you can do the same for them. Help them connect to your ex manager or anyone that you have connected with so far. So these become sort of like the uncommon sources of finding a network. But how do you actually find this network? And it is really easy to do that on LinkedIn if you do so. So when you go to LinkedIn and you go to the search bar, of course, you add the filter of people. And then when you see this on the connection side, make sure you use the filter of first and second. First means you're already connected with this person, so you would be able to just send them a message right away. Second means that you have some mutual connection, which means that you can use that mutual connection person to ask for an introduction to connect with this person. Rather than reaching out to someone directly, if you have a common connection, always ask for that person for an introduction. It's not a big favor to ask to someone, much easier to ask to someone, even if you haven't met them personally yet. Someone is most likely to do that favor to you. And for the other side, people are likely to respond if someone is making that introduction, because it kind of adds a credibility. It shows that you're not just connecting with someone, and you could be anyone, but they can see that you have a common connection, and then depending on the credibility of that person, that adds to weight to that connection request. So always make sure you try to always prioritize people who are first or second in your network, because that's what would help you more. And then in terms of the connection off, you can always kind of search if there's a particular person who is more closer to you. It could be a friend, a colleague, your ex-manager, your batchmates. Kind of try to add those people's names so you can see who is more likely to, make that introduction for you versus it just being anyone in your network. And then you can always, in the past company and school section, use Lambton College. So you can, anyways, whenever you're, let's say, searching for an account manager or a cashier at RBC, you can put school as Lambton, and you would be able to see all the people who are working with RBC as a customer success representative, and they have been through Lambton. So always make sure you kind of use that when you're trying to find that. But before I kind of go to how to reach out to them, I'm gonna take a pause and see how are you guys feeling? If you guys have any questions so far that you want to add to the chat, and overall give you guys a bit of a breather before we move ahead. Okay, gonna take that as no question. So now let's talk about how do you actually reach out, right? Like we talked a lot about who you should connect with, why you should connect with, but all of that is done. How can you connect? What do you really say? What is a good thing to say? What is a bad thing to say? Let's kind of get into that. So when you're reaching out to hiring manager, you want to keep three things in mind. First thing, you always want to have a respectful tone, not too direct, not too like something like, hey, I'm looking for a job, help me find one, but something that is more of a respectful tone, and something that you can use basically to show your respect to someone. Second, you want to share information with them, which means you want to give them a bit of a sneak peek as to why they should connect with you. If you're going to keep it vague as, hey, I'm a recent graduate looking for a job in accounting industry, would love to connect and learn more, much vague. They don't really know, okay, what does that mean in accounting? Like you're a graduate, but what did you study? What are you interested in? And kind of things around that. So you want to make sure you give them a bit of a summary while you are reaching out to them. And the third is to be more technical. Because as I mentioned before, for a hiring manager, there's a direct intent. They have an open job position. They're always looking to fill that with more candidates. So they're always looking to connect with people. But when they have hundreds of those, they are not going to respond to just anyone. They need to know, hey, this is the job I'm hiring for. This is top three qualities or skills that you have that maybe make you a potential candidate for this role. And okay, that means I can talk to this person because that will make sure they're not wasting their time. And you're not just using that time to ask them, do you have any open jobs for me? So the best practices is be mindful of what you are asking them for. Don't just say, hey, like, give me that job, but more so say, hey, I know you're looking to hire for this role. I have studied, let's take an accounting position, for example. Hey, I know you're looking for an accounting analyst. I have studied accounting diploma, specializing with QuickBooks and specializing with analytics skill set. I have worked as a customer service representative, trying to gather more team management skill. And now I'm interested to see how I can fit this role and how I can, be a good connection for you. So it kind of used that opportunity to basically say that, hey, I think XYZ is the reason I'm a good match for this role, but I'm just here to learn more about it and I want to build this relationship with you. So they know exactly which position you're looking for, that you have done your research, you know why you're good for that position, and now you're just trying to do that extra step to learn more. So that's why you want to be there and ask and build that relationship. Versus a recruiter, a recruiter is something that would be different than a hiring manager. For a recruiter, they are much more industry specific, but also more generalized because recruiters are someone who basically work with companies to help them hire for jobs. Hiring managers are someone who would work for the company, so they only would be hiring for the roles for that company. Versus with the recruiters, they would have positions open from 10 different companies and they're actively hiring every single day for multiple and multiple of positions. So for this person, they're always interested to connect with talent. But again, you can't just go with them and say, do you have any job for me? You need to know what do they usually recruit for. Every recruiter has some sort of specialty. They either specialize in a particular role or they specialize in a type of company that they work with. So spend some time on their LinkedIn, spend some time on their website, and see what are usually the roles that they're hiring for. Read the description in their bio to kind of get that understanding as to what do they really do, because that will help you figure out if they are hiring for only accounting roles, they're hiring only for computer science roles, or they hire only for the banks, or they hire only for a specific company. You'll figure all that out when you're reaching out to them. So you want to make sure your profile looks as good as possible. These are the people you can actually say, hey, I'm looking for a job. I have these top three skill set. I know you hire people within this industries. And I also saw a few roles that are open that I think I would be a great fit for. Would love to share more and see how we can work together. So that person is more likely to respond to you that way versus a hiring manager is more so just working with one company. So you want to give them a bit of an elevator pitch, but also say that you want to learn more about their company, which helps you ultimately do that job search. But one of the things for both of them, which I want to make sure you both don't discount, is add value to them. So, you always see people posting on LinkedIn saying, hey, I'm hiring for this role. You might not be a great fit for that role, but you would know someone who is, right? Like a friend or someone in your network who you think could be interested in that role. Always make sure to tag that person in a comment saying, hey, I think this person would be a great fit, or make that introduction for that person if they're actually a great fit through a message. The recruiter will really appreciate that because it shows that you're not just here to find a job for yourself, but if you did find someone who could be a great fit, you're trying to help this recruiter by going that extra mile. So that always goes a long way. Always make sure you're trying to add some value and engage in their comment, and just tag people who you think would be a good fit. Or you can just say, hey, commenting for better reach. That's always kind of something that works. But some of the things you don't want to say to a recruiter or a hiring manager ever is one, can you help me find a job? Because again, they're always looking to hire. You need to tell them what they can do for you rather than say, hey, can you just help me find a job? The second is asking them to review a resume. Not a good thing to ask directly with recruiters and hiring managers. Of course, if they're interested in you, they would ask you to share a resume. Share a resume and always follow that up with saying something like, hey, this is my resume. Please let me know if there is any feedback that you have for me. That is something much easier than just sending someone a message right away saying, hey, giving, a usual long pitch saying, hey, this is my name, this is what I do. Here's my resume. Can you please review this for me? Can you please help me? Can you please connect me with someone? And everything in that one message most likely is not going to work. And the third is asking them, can you recommend or refer me? Unless you have really known this person or you've had at least one or two conversations with them, asking them this in the first message is something that is never going to work for you, because recommending someone is putting your own reputation at risk. So you always want to make sure that you have confidence in the person that you are referring. And then the fourth question saying, hey, do you know anyone in XYZ company? Something you can find that out through LinkedIn. So should not be something you should be asking them for. And then of course saying that way question of, hey, do you have any openings that fit my profile? Because again, you don't want to know that, you can Google that. So now that you have known how to connect, what to say, what not to say, what do you do in that networking chat? Like once that person has agreed to do that chat with you, they're hopping on that virtual call with you, uh, what do you really say that to them? And I see that someone in the comment put that, can you share a couple of examples of conversation to show how to apply these in real life? Absolutely. I actually have some screenshots of LinkedIn messages that I received, I sent out. So I will be sharing that with you in a couple of minutes. So kind of let's go over what are the do's and don'ts of networking chats. The do's, of course, is you want to research about the connection before the call, go through their LinkedIn, see the companies they have worked for, learn a bit about the school they went to, if they have shared any posts. Just do a bit of your research to not, again, waste your time asking them some questions that you could have found on LinkedIn, but rather use that time to ask specific questions. For example, someone was working as a cashier and then they jumped on to working for RBC. I would be really interested to know, hey, when you were doing that transition, what were some of the things that supported you or some of the transferable skills that you highlighted to make that jump? Or if someone went from industry A to industry B or company A to company B, you want to know, hey, what were some of the things that you did? What were some of the things that you found useful by making that move? So you would be able to ask more specific questions than just going on a coffee chat and being like, hey, would love to learn more about you. Tell me more about your professional career. There's so much to tell, right? So how would they be able to answer that? So let's make it more niche and show that you came prepared. Second is to always take a learning approach. And I've always done that with all the calls I'm on, even with a hiring manager. The end goal of all of that is just to learn more about the industry, learn more about the role. So don't just make it about the job, but actually see it as a learning opportunity to learn more about the person and learn more about the position. The last part, it will be to have a catchy story. A lot of times people do some, tell me some stories about themselves. Like I usually say, hey, like I moved here when I was 18 and I packed my bags in 2 suitcases or something like that. Like even though we've all done that, it's something is that stands in their mind. Or you can, say, tell them something about a competition that you were a part of, or say, hey, I used to be a basketball player and now, I'm becoming an accountant. Trying to find what is that a little bit of an edgy story for you. Always good to kind of add that, slip that in a conversation somehow, because it helps people remember you. There are hundreds of people who are trying to be accountants, hundreds of people who are trying to be a computer, software engineer, but there will always be that little catchy story you can tell that will help them remember you. And the next part would be to remember it's a conversation. This is not an interview. You're not sitting with a set of questions in your hand and just, every time someone stops answering, you're like, okay, thank you, next question. Make this into a conversation. If they're responding something back, piggyback on that, ask them more questions about what they just said, or maybe just kind of add in what your own thought about that particular conversation is, rather than being like, okay, thank you, next question. Make it more of a conversation and not an interview, and that will actually end up building a much more engaging relationship versus you making it a Q&A with them. And then the next is more ask them about opinion on ideal candidates. So what do they think is an ideal candidate to land in that particular industry? How will help you understand an insight? And at the end, always ask for recommendation in resources. Ask them, hey, is there a newsletter you follow, a website you go to, a LinkedIn page you follow, something you do that helps you keep yourself on the top of the industry? Ask for some recommendation. Ask them what else you can consume to make yourself better, any other course, any other certificates. It will always help you kind of understanding what do the people use to add in resources, and you will be much more assimilated within your industry while you're trying to do that. And some of the don'ts already mentioned: don't ask for a referral, don't ask if there's an opening in the company, only talking about yourself, kind of going over and over your resume. Hey, I worked here, there, studied this, that, this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm struggling with, making it all about you, making it all about that job search. That is something that you will kill that conversation instantly. And of course, just following a script where you have something written and you're just reading it off, and you don't want to make it a conversation. Not something you should never be doing in a coffee chat. So let's go over, what you asked me, sir, kind of, can I share you some real life examples? Let's kind of go that into it. First of all, always number one thumb of rule, don't overshare. This is one of the messages one of my uh, co-founders got of, where someone is like, hey, thank you for connecting with me. I'm 21 years old and a graduate of a 5-year bachelor's of science. I'm looking for a part-time job because I want to start saving money to get a visa for Canada, because my plan is to go to Canada to study for 2 years while working. My biggest goal is to pay back all the hard work and sacrifice of my parent. I have no idea what God is taking me, and I trust him. Just sharing. Have a nice day. Again, sweet message, a message you might want to send to a peer, but isn't necessarily a message you want to send to a recruiter or a hiring manager. I know some of us think like by being authentic or by just saying like, oh, I want to work hard, it might make you stand out. But this actually doesn't add any value to someone else, because it just is like, you can read this and you feel, you would want to help someone, but I don't know what exactly is the position they're looking for. I don't know what are their skill set. I don't know if my company actually has any part-time positions. So it's a very vague message, and most likely a recruiter or a hiring manager would not respond to you. If you send this to a peer, someone who is, in the same boat as you, they can definitely respond back and help, but not something you want to share with a recruiter or a hiring manager. This is something a really good example of how you want to reach out to someone very niche. Keeping in mind your audience. This is someone you try to connect to, saying, hey, I'm currently working on a passion project that helps international students skill up online. You can say something like, hey, I'm currently in an exploration phase where I'm trying to find the best next role for myself. I'm also exploring the next opportunity in the edtech world, and I would love to connect and learn more about Top Hat and the AE role. This was an example of saying this person was hiring for an account executive role at Top Hat. So you reach out to them saying, hey, I am interested to exploring my next position in within the edtech industry, and would love to connect and learn more about this company and the role. The person responded back, hey, happy to chat of anything. And then you want to always respond back saying, hey, what time does work for you? Happy to schedule that for you. So this becomes very direct, short, sweet. And when they mentioned, hey, I went to Sauder, so the other person was also from Sauder. So this was an alumni that you were reaching out to. So it kind of helps that you mentioned that, like, hey, I'm also a fellow alumni of Lambton, looking to, for my next opportunity within the industry that that person is currently working in and the role that you are currently hiring for. Would love to connect and learn more. So much more direct than just kind of giving them a 5-paragraph pitch. The next part example is to make things about the other person. This is someone you're reaching out to who is a senior within a company, a mentor, someone who could possibly become that teacher for you. Saying something like, hey, I've been a fan of, Tea Time with Chris and love the authenticity that you bring to the podcast. I may not have spoken with you directly, but have heard great things about you and your leadership style. I would love to connect and change the not spoken to you part, and let's grab a tea or coffee virtually sometime. Very direct, kind of shows, hey, I took out the time to consume some of your content. They might not be a podcaster. Let's say someone shared an article. You can say, hey, the article you shared, I read through it. It was very informative. I've also always looked up to your career journey. Would love to learn more about, as an aspiring software engineer, would love to learn more from your experience and how you made that career switch from this to this, right? Like kind of making it personal about them, kind of seeing it from their LinkedIn as to what has that trajectory looked like and what can you nitpick from that and share with them and make it more personalized to them. So these are some of just the examples of what you can do, but you can always try to be as experimental with it. Always try to find a way to relate to the person you're trying to reach out to. So be it a content they shared, someone who they connected with, some post they liked, some company they have worked for, some career jump they have done. So many things that you can do. Let's see the next example. It will be, hey, my name is JB. I'd like to introduce myself. I am a tech enthusiast as well as an entrepreneur. I would love to connect and learn more about your role or experience as BDC. I've applied to a similar position and would love to get some insight. Similarly, again, so easy to connect with someone to say, hey, I'm applying for this position. I know you have done this position, would love to just learn and get some more insight. This allows the person to see that you did your research, you knew what exactly were there, but also be prepared when someone says that. If all of you don't already, make sure you have a calendar booking link. Go to Calendly, just go online, search calendar booking link. There's Calendly. You can do it through your own Gmail. Like there are a lot of these third-party calendar booking apps completely for free. What that helps you do is really reduce that one step to say, hey, what time works for you? Let me know. And then they will give you a time. Then you would go back. It might not work for you. You might have a class, you might have a job. Then you go back and do this back and forth of saying, hey, does this time work for you? That time work for you? Rather than doing all of that, why not chop that and say, hey, here's a link to my calendar. Whatever slot works for you, please book that. So what you can do in these calendars is you can set up a certain time on which you know you would be available and you already have something in your calendar like a class or something like that, then they wouldn't be able to book a meeting in that session. But this really allows them to see that you are much more professional and you are more organized. So if you haven't already, make sure you look for some calendar scheduling apps and have that free link for yourself and make it easy for people to connect with you. A lot of people actually also put this on their LinkedIns now. So on your LinkedIn, you can actually have a URL. So people usually put this. So if someone is just interested to connect with them, if you're someone who's looking to just grow their network, always good to have that. So if people who are interested to connect with you as well, they can just directly do that without doing this back and forth of like, hey, when are you free? What time works for you? If this works for me, and vice versa. And then the last thing to keep in mind is once you have done the call with that person, always summarize and share back with them and be like, hey, I had a great virtual chat with you. Here are a few highlights. Share the road bumps in the transition of the data science, discussed a bit about the BC product message, talked about the strategy, about data science, job application, making for the hiring manager, I kind of share a bit of that highlight with that person and saying, hey, I really enjoyed having this conversation with you. I learned XYZ. I am looking forward to implementing XYZ into my job search or into my career here. And kind of give them back a bit of like, hey, this is what I learned from you, or this is what I'm taking away from this conversation. So this will allow to kind of keep that conversation going and just also thanking them for their time. And then, yeah, this is something we can skip currently because we are running a bit on time. Um, so I think I'm going in the wrong direction. Oh, interesting. Sorry about that, guys. It's just repeating itself. Yeah, so I'm gonna do this last and then I'm gonna end it because I actually want to take up some time for Q&A. But the last part of that is, how do you actually structure a coffee chat? Like if someone who's jumped on and is trying to do a coffee chat with you, what are some of the things you want to do? So in the first 5% is usually thanking them for their time, kind of setting up a clear objective of the meeting. I always love to start my meetings by saying, hey, in this meeting or in this chat, I would love to just learn a bit more about your role at BDC or your experience in this industry, and then just share a bit more about myself and gain some feedback. Setting up a clear objective helps you kind of steer like this is where the conversation is going and this is what my end goal is. And then of course, always ask them questions, introduce by yourself and the experiences you have, and then ask that first question of like, hey, I'm very interested to see how did you move from this position to this, or how did you get into this industry? And then try to relate to their experience a little bit. The major part of that you want to spend on just asking them questions and them kind of giving that information for you and using that to build on a conversation where you get to learn more and more and more about them. And then you just want to take the last 10-ish minutes to kind of relate to that experience of sharing how anything that you learned, what did you think about it? Have you experienced any of that currently? And then ask for any feedback, any resources, and then just thank them again and close it and then send them a thank you note and kind of have a bit of when would you like to connect with them again, or just say, hey, let's keep in touch. And anytime you have an update, or let's say they suggested a newsletter to you and you really like that, you can always go back after a week or so and say, hey, I read this newsletter and that was really helpful. Thank you for that recommendation. So you can continue to keep those conversation going by doing this little bit of back and forth, sharing feedback on anything that they taught you. If you do end up landing a role, always reach back to them and saying, hey, this information that you taught me was very helpful. I landed the role, would love to continue to keep you in my network. So these are sort of like those small touch points you can have with someone that will help you basically keep in contact with them. But yeah, that's pretty much it in terms of the coffee chat. Like there's a lot more. I will share this full presentation with you. But just in interest of time, I actually want to help you kind of understand quickly of how you can get involved with Wayble, and then we'll kind of go on the Q&A. So the first one of how do you can get involved with Wayble is we on our website have a direct like job profile link. You can create a job profile and that will help you to apply to job position and also connect and network with employers. So do that, start applying for the job positions through our job board. And then we do tons of these workshops and webinars, which are much more detailed and specialized into one particular topic. We also host a lot of networking events with the employers. So we bring employers to be able to kind of help you network with them directly and reduce that friction of having a middleman. We have a lot of free templates and blogs you can consume, as well as engage with us on our social media. So this is basically of how you can get involved with Wayble. You can scan this QR code right here. This will take you directly to our landing page. And then you can just set up a quick profile and you will get a registration link in your inbox. So by clicking on that, you can finish your registration at a later time and then make sure you start availing all the amazing resources that we have to share with you. But yeah, with that, I'm going to end today's session and now would love to just open it up for Q&A. You have any questions? any experience you want to share, any personal experience you have a question about, always happy to answer. Thanks, Akash. I'm really happy that you found the information very informative. Okay, I think I'm going to take that as no questions. So yeah, over to you, Christina. Oh yeah, okay. We do have a question. How important it is to have a LinkedIn premium? Not important at all. I don't have a LinkedIn premium. I never got one. I tried the free version of it. I am someone who is very frugal, so I believe that unless it really stops me from doing something, I don't like to pay for it. So I don't have a premium. I think premium is useful when you're sending a lot of emails. You want to have some advanced search filters. So I would kind of like do a personal guess, but as a student, if you can't afford it, I don't think you really need it. You can still continue to connect with people. You can still use your emails, just be more careful with them. Rather than sending an email, which I feel like a lot of people don't respond to, it's always better to connect with someone, but add a note to that connection request. So that will allow you to add a bit of that messaging when you're sending a connection request with them, rather than sending them a message right away, which they might not even be interested in. So why waste your money in trying to connect with someone who you don't even know is interested in you? So yeah, not important at all, unless you really think there's a feature you can use, and you don't get that with the free version. I have always had a free version, and I'm happy with that. The second is I see a lot of job posting that are fit and good for my profile, apply to a lot of them, but I haven't been getting any responses. Are those jobs ghost jobs, or do companies really hire through those job postings? Good question. I think it's a mix of a lot of it. So the first of all, you have to know that companies who post on LinkedIn, majority of them don't look at applications themselves. They first would have what we call, I'm actually going to stop sharing. They first would have an ATS system, which is like an online software where in which they put in all the applications, and only the shortlisted ones are the ones that they look at. And some of them actually, even after they've hired for the roles, sometimes they just forget to close the roles. So whenever you're applying for the job, always kind of look at when was that job posted. Was it posted a week ago? Was it posted 3 weeks ago? Anything over 3 weeks, I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't even try applying for it, because most likely it is a job that's either a ghost job or they've already filled it. So keep in mind when was the last time it was posted, and always continue to optimize your resume as much, because sadly, it's not a person looks at it, ATS looks at it. So there's a lot of smaller nuances within ATS that you want to keep in mind. Are there any tools to optimize LinkedIn profile? Yes, absolutely. So when you go to Wayble, in one of our resources, we have a LinkedIn optimization template. So you can download that for sure, and use that to optimize your LinkedIn profile. But I also know LinkedIn profile in itself has some sort of scoring. So when you will go and edit your profile, it will show you how complete or optimized your profile is. So you can also use that option. Where can I find reliable sources to obtain free certification? Well, there are quite a lot. I think LinkedIn Learning is one of the good ones. I would always trust the companies who are offering it. So think about Udemy. It's called Udemy. Udemy is a good platform that hosts a lot of certifications. I know like Google, Facebook, YouTube, like all these big giants have their own certifications. So it really depends on the industry you're working in. I would look at either the employer having some sort of credibility, and if not, then Udemy or other educational institutions have better reputation, as well as LinkedIn Learning. And then the last question is, I'm a recent grad from Lambton and I've never worked previously. Only work experience that I have is co-op, but even all entry job asks for 2 to 3 years of experience. How do I navigate the situation? So your co-op job experience is a part of your job experience, so you should definitely include that in. Whenever entry roles say 2 to 3, that is sort of like your overall experience, which includes your co-ops, includes any volunteer positions that you have done. So if you think the barrier to entry is really just gaining experience, I would recommend start to engaging in volunteering opportunities, as well as other industry like part-time freelance work, if you can do so, to kind of build up on that skill set and continue to connect with employers to kind of try to get in. But entry level shouldn't have the expectation of 2 to 3 years. They always put ideal case scenario, but if you have had co-op experience, you have studied in that field, and you are kind of continuing to build some projects in there, you would be able to land the role. How can I make ATS friendly resume? So there are a lot of online scanners. Just go on Google and search ATS scanners. There are a lot of free ones that are available, in which what you can do is they will ask you to put the job description on one side, add your resume on one side, and they will give you an ATS score as well as recommendation. So try Googling the ones. There are a lot of them for free. And if you can't find any for free, there could be a few paid versions, but there are definitely a lot of free ones. So I would just search ATS scanners online or free, and then you should get some answers. All right. Do we have any other questions? I think, Christina, that's about it in terms of the questions. Yeah, that's a really good suggestion. Yeah, I think Akash, your suggestion of using ChatGPT or Copilot, also a good one for ATS scanners.
All right.
All right, amazing.
Good. I think right now we don't have any more questions. Everything has been answered so far. So once again, Remnet, thank you very, very much for your time and such an engaging session. I was sharing a moment ago my screen. You can find there our Instagram profile. If you wish, I invite you to follow us on Instagram as well. This is where we will be posting our next events, and I hope you get great value from today's session. It was really nice. I will put myself in practice some of your tips as well. Once again, thank you very much for an engaging session. You already got Ramnit's information as well, so don't hesitate to contact her. She is an expert. She has given us some amazing tips today. And that is going to be it from me today. So once again, thank you everyone for your participation.